Hey everyone, I'm Nicholas Semrad, and I'm here with my friends from Guitarcenter, and we're here today to check out the Yamaha MODX M8. So I've been a sound designer and a beta tester with Yamaha for about 8 or 9 years now, and I've seen plenty of different older versions of Montages and MODXs come through. This version is by far the best of all the new things they've put out. It's a hybrid of the Montage and of the MODX. They've vastly improved the sound, the control, and the workflow of this board. It has increased polyphony. It has double the amount of sliders and faders. It has this keyboard hold button that I love. And everything is just way easier to use. There's a lot of great new menu options. This thing is amazing. If you want to skip ahead to check out any of the features that we're going to talk about, you can find them in the chapters listed in the description below. All right, so we're gonna hop into the improved sound of this board. I actually designed a patch using the brand new ANX virtual analog engine. So let's dive into this sound. It's so easy to make classic analog sounds on here, especially if you want to put a modern touch on them. On this particular sound, I have a love of kind of like delayed pitch oscillator things. And so in this particular sound, when I play it, you're actually going to hear initially an octave apart, but they're kind of like delayed in time. Again, I like to build in a lot of different modulation routing. So if you move the super knob here, you're actually going to hear the third oscillator come in. It's also going to be delayed. It's going to be a little crushed. So here's what that sounds like. So a few tricks of mine that I used on this particular patch, again, that are very easy to do on the ANX engine. I kind of start with like just a simple, I'm pretty certain it's a sine wave or a triangle wave, but just a very simple kind of bell sound. I put a little pitch warble and I low pass it quite a bit. So here's that sound by itself. And then to get that kind of like delayed sound, I actually copied that oscillator onto another one, pitched it up an octave, and then put just a simple bit of delay in the actual playing of the oscillator. So it comes in right after I play the key. So here's what that sounds like. So where things get interesting for me on this particular program is that the third oscillator is actually being engaged by the super knob. So the super knob is going to turn the volume up on the third oscillator. It's going to lower the pitch of the first oscillator, and then it's going to add a little bit crush to the whole scenario. So you get this like pretty intense wide movement. So here's what that sounds like with everything together and the super knob moving. So Yamaha obviously has a deep history in the planet of analog synthesis. They've always been a pioneer in that world, and they've allowed you with this ANX engine to actually access a lot of those sounds on this particular board. So here's a sound called CS80 Structure PAT that kind of gives homage to the past instruments that they've created. as I was saying before, there are some cool new features on this particular board that allow you to do things in a more modern way. One way that I really pride myself on taking advantage of in Yamaha's products is the ability to like phrase in unique ways. And on this particular board, there's a new keyboard hold button over here. By engaging the keyboard hold button, when I play a sound, it's going to hold it until I play something else. So I'll play this. And you notice that every time I took my hands off, it kept playing it until I played something else. It's kind of a clever way to let you phrase really uniquely. I like to play like I'm in a producer role, and I think this type of thing gives you the ability to sound like you've chopped a sound up. And it's just another new feature on this board that I've really fallen in love with. And as always, Yamaha is going to showcase, again with this board, their fabulous FMX engine. It's going to get all your kind of classic FM sounds. A sound I've really fallen in love with on here is the FM Sine Lead 3. So here's what that sounds like. I've always had a particular fondness for kind of like the smoothness of FM leads. I think analog synths, you know, they can do smooth too, but they kind of specialize, especially in lead sounds, in kind of big, brash, bright things. And I think the FM lead synths, especially this one, have like a really kind of kind quality to them. So you can playing through a ton of notes and it never is anything sonically kind of like beat you up. So when I get the chance to be in a studio and someone's asking me for some sort of melodic function or a lead or something, but they want it to be on the calmer side, I gravitate right to FM. One of the other obvious choices for an example of what Yamaha has done in the sound design and synth world is the DX piano sounds. You hear these in a ton of R&B and classic gospel records and things like that. So this particular sound is called the DX FM EP, and here's what that sounds like. I think when I hear the DX7 keyboard, it just takes me to like a very particular genre of music and type of music, and that's like late 80s, early 90s R&B. There was a pretty big resurgence of that type of music, especially in R&B and hip-hop nowadays. Usually in hip-hop music, if they're using that, it's kind of messed up, so maybe I'll mess it up a little bit and show you what that would sound like. So this also speaks to the kind of like ease in sound manipulation that this board has. It's very, very, very simple now to get in and mess with parameters. And so essentially with this sound, I'm just taking the classic DX7 piano, I'm turning the cutoff way down, I'm turning the attack of the sound way up and the release way down. So now you get this kind of like weird distorted thing that hints at the original sound, but it has a more modern feel to it. This keyboard in general, especially compared to the last MODX, they've just made some improvements in how quick and easy everything is. So I can get through, you know, if I want to change the attack on something, it's instantaneous. If I want to change the cutoff on something, it's instantaneous. This board can do everything. It's got your ANX engine, which is the classic analog sounds, modern analog sounds. It's got your FMX engine, which is going to handle everything FM. And then it has the AWM2 engine, which is going to handle all of your kind of like sample-based sounds that Yamaha is really good at already. This time they've actually upped the polyphony. Now it's 268 voices, so you're never going to have any sort of voice stealing if you have parts that are super layered or you have a ton of different scene changes or something like that. You're just never going to run out of sounds. You're never going to run out of voices, which is really cool because when that happens, it's a bummer. So here's what that sounds like. I found a really cool patch on here. Another cool modulation thing that you can do on the MODX M8 is play with the scenes. So you can actually set up different versions of the sound that you have. So in this particular type of sound, and I love doing this with orchestral sounds or anything I'm doing like scoring wise, where you have kind of quick access to like a slightly different palette, especially when I go between 1 through 4. I didn't use all of them on that particular performance, but when you're switching through, it's like highlighting specific instruments, and sometimes the flutes drop out and the trombones get louder and stuff like that. So here, I'll just give you an example of what each scene sounds like separately. So this basically just gives me, again, a really quick way to get between different groups of instruments. And you can actually use this for all the other engines as well. So if you're doing some sort of ANX program where you want there to be a pad and then it goes to a lead, you can actually just have the scene. In one particular scene, you have the pad sound. In the other one, you've changed the attack and the release, so now you have a lead. It just makes everything really quick, and it's great for live performance, so you can quickly get everywhere you need to go. So I also want to touch on something that Yamaha has just done well forever, and that's its piano sounds. It has such a rich history with all the analog synths, all the FM things, but it's just done pianos really well for a really long time. And in this particular board, there's some really great piano sounds. And what I love about these piano sounds is when you add them to all the different modulation capabilities that you have, you can go from traditional to kind of like future or modern really quickly and really easily and really musically. So I'm going to play a little bit on a program that I love called Cinematic Felt, and maybe halfway through the performance I'll start kind of like glitching it out a little bit so you can see how we can also get the modern sounds. In that particular program, again, there's a really nice kind of cinematic felt, like the name of the program, sound that's happening. But by turning the super knob, and I was doing that with an expression pedal, you start to get these kind of like pitchy, weird, glitched delays. And I just love that kind of quick, again, this is all about quick access, easy access on this board. Quick access going from like traditional, simple, nice to like really kind of weird and modern. I just love how easy it is to get between those two things. So I think this program does a really nice job of that. So we've talked a little bit about the controls and the easy workflow that this particular board has, but something I wanted to touch on was how now there's double the amount of sliders. I really love this particular thing when using drawbars on an organ sound. So there's a preset on this board called the Basics, and this is just gonna allow me to essentially play this as if it's a real organ, like an old traditional soul organ. So here's how I would do that. As you can see, you get that real kind of like organ playability where I can mess with the drawbars in real time. There's enough of them now because there's double the amount of the previous board. So you really do get that kind of like actual organ feel, which again, just makes it so great for a studio tool, for a live concert tool, and everything's just super easy access. It's right here, really easy to use. In my opinion, I think this is the best sounding organ that Yamaha has had on a board in a long time. This thing sounds so good. Another way that I love to use these faders on this board is by having some sort of like pad or like textural sound, and then having each of the faders kind of do like a different, either bring in like an oscillator that's kind of like weird messed up or a texture or something. So this particular program called PWM String Slow, we're essentially gonna lay a pad out, I'm gonna sustain it, and then I'm just gonna play the faders. And this will kind of show you how you can use them as kind of like a textural, almost like a momentary addition of sorts. Here's what I'm talking about. So in that particular program, there's cutoff things happening with the mod wheel, and then I really like this kind of second fader is bringing in the second oscillator, and the oscillator sounds like it has a really fast kind of like almost audio rate LFO on it. So it's doing this kind of like gnarly addition to the sound. It's kind of cool because I can go between this kind of like peaceful, simple synth string sound and then just make it momentarily a bit gnarlier and then rip it out right away. And I really love faders for that, and lets you get really customized with the tune and the emotions you're trying to portray with the particular sound. It just gives you a ton of options, and it gives you a ton of quick options. So another thing that I love about the MODX M8 is the smart morph function. Now, a lot of time when I'm building synth sounds, especially if I'm trying to pick between 2 or 3, it's really easy. Sound designers, you'll all know this, where sometimes it's very easy to get stuck. Like, oh, I kind of like that one. I kind of like this one. And smart morph is a way that Yamaha has come up with, and it lets kind of like their machine learning algorithm find pieces of all the sounds that you plug into the equation. So this particular sound is called 4 keyboard faves, and there's 4 different synth sounds in here that it's actually going to kind of like pick different parts of each of them and scroll through and create brand new things that you can kind of experiment with and find. I'm gonna open up the smart morph screen now just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And you'll notice that as I move the super knob, there's this little, it's basically scrolling through different points in the algorithm that it's created. And each of these colors kind of represents the different sound structures that we've put in there. So as I'm playing, I'll play and then I'll move the super knob. You're just gonna hear essentially it morphing between all of the sounds. A lot of times, again, I'm in between 2 sounds. So if I go between these first 2 sounds, I'm like, well, I don't really want the first one, but the second one has something that's not quite right. Oftentimes, as I'm kind of like using the smart morph function and scrolling between the 2, I'm gonna find something about it that I love. So let's just scroll through until we find kind of a cool hybrid mix. You can also use it as a performance tool where, like, if I'm playing along and I'm scrolling between the sounds, it's like this cool momentary switch of, you know, what the oscillators are doing, the things you're hearing. It's just kind of a cool textural move. So I'm going to play, and while I'm playing, I'll scroll through all the morph points. So again, smart morph is a really cool thing if you just want to experiment with a couple different synth sounds that you like and you want to add textures to them and experiment and try to find maybe a new texture that you hadn't thought of. The cool thing about this is you can actually save specific points. Like once you've found a cool sound, you can just save that as another sound. So it's a really cool way to build synth sounds and experiment with different functions and things you might not normally catch. One of my favorite things about this board also is just the improved workflow. It's got USB MIDI 2.0, and one of my absolute favorite things about any board ever is that you can actually send audio via USB on this. You can use this board as its own audio interface, so if you're traveling, which I tour a lot, and it just basically means you don't have to bring your audio interface with you, which is a very good thing for me. It's just really easy to have a really good workflow where you can multi-track on your computer. You don't need any extra gear. It's all included on this board. The other cool thing about this board is that in January of 2026, the ESP plugin will be released. That's the expanded soft synth plugin. So essentially, you're going to have a plugin version of this board where you can edit all your sounds, you can get everything saved and reorganized and do all your stuff without actually having to have the board in front of you. If you're a touring musician or someone who travels, or you just want to get some extra work done on the board and not have to have it in front of you, that's going to be a really great program for all these new MODX boards that are coming out. So in summary, I think the Yamaha MODX M8 is just going to be the one board that can handle everything in your studio or live setup. It's got the FMX, the ANX, and the AWM2 engines that all sound really, really incredible. It's got a bunch of great kind of modulation and control options that you can do on the fly if you want to get really creative, and just the way that it can record super easily and multi-track using the USB audio and the USB MIDI 2.0. There's not really much that this board can't do, so if you're looking for a board that can kind of handle all of your needs, this is definitely the one. So if you're interested in learning more about the Yamaha MODX M8, you can head over to guitarcenter.com, you can hit up one of their expert gear advisors, or you can go to your local GC and try one out yourself.